The first thing my wife said that night wasn't hello. It was, stay where you are and don't open your mouth. She didn't look at me when she said it. Her eyes were already scanning the room, measuring angles, reading faces, adjusting her smile like a dial. Her fingers closed around my wrist, not gently, not lovingly, but firm enough to remind me of my place. 30 seconds later, a stranger changed my life. I just didn't know it yet. I was standing behind a concrete pillar in a hotel ballroom overlooking the water, the kind of place designed to make people feel important just by being inside it. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Soft amber lighting. Jazz drifting through the air like it belonged there. Everything polished. Everything intentional. Everything expensive. The tuxedo I was wearing was rented. Too tight at the collar. The shoes pinched my toes. I stood with my arms hanging awkwardly at my sides, trying not to fidget, trying not to look like what I was, a man who didn't belong in rooms like this. My wife did. She always did. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, confident, effortless, laughing at the right moments, touching elbows, dropping names. She had practiced this, not just for tonight, but for years. This is my moment, she'd said on the drive in, checking her reflection at every red light. The board is here, the donors are here, the new ownership is here. Optics matter. I nodded. I always nodded. Inside the ballroom, the air smelled like perfume and money, and something floral pumped through the vents. Servers moved silently with trays of champagne. The river outside reflected city lights like a second ceiling. She glided ahead of me, heels clicking with purpose. I followed. I always followed. The problem, as usual, was my hands. She'd noticed them earlier in the restroom, under the harsh white lights. She grabbed my wrist like she was inspecting something she didn't approve of. Jesus, she muttered. They look terrible. They're hands, I said. She rolled her eyes and pulled a small tube from her clutch, squeezing a beige cream into her palm. Here, just cover the worst of it. I stared at the smear. The calluses, the faint burned scar near my thumb, the pale line along my wrist, curved like a question mark left over from a job decades ago, when a mislabeled breaker taught me a lesson I never forgot. These are from work, I said. And this, she replied, nodding toward the ballroom, is from success. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I washed the cream off in the sink and watched it spiral down the drain, disappearing like it never mattered. Like I didn't. Back in the ballroom, she positioned me the way she always did. Half a step behind her shoulder, close enough to fetch a drink. Far enough to be ignored. Stay back, she hissed as a group approached. Don't embarrass me. So I stood by the pillar. From there, I watched. I listened. I noticed things I'd learned to notice over years of staying quiet. She laughed at jokes she'd heard 100 times. Talked about leadership and culture and ethics like she'd invented them herself. Heads nodded. Glasses clinked. Names floated past me like smoke. Then the music dipped. It was subtle. Just enough to shift the room. Conversations softened. Heads turned. Phones disappeared into pockets. Someone important had arrived. She came in without asking permission. Mid-50s, simple black dress, hair pulled back, no jewelry screaming for attention, which meant it probably cost more than my truck. She shook hands as she moved, but her eyes weren't on faces. They were searching. My wife straightened immediately, lifted her glass, stepped forward with a smile. I recognized the one she practiced. The woman didn't see her. She walked right past the smile, past the toast, straight toward me. I felt it before I understood it, like the air pressure in the room had shifted. Her gaze locked onto mine and didn't let go. She crossed the space in 3 quiet steps and reached out not to shake my hand. She took it, both of them. Her fingers were warm, steady. She didn't look at my tux. She looked at my wrist, at the scar. Her thumb brushed it gently, like she was confirming something she already knew. Her eyes softened, just slightly. The room kept humming behind us, jazz, laughter, the clink of crystal. But for a moment, everything went quiet. I've been trying to find you for a very long time, she said softly. Somewhere behind us, a glass shattered. I didn't need to turn around to know whose it was. I tried to speak, my throat locked up. All I managed was, I think you've made a mistake. She shook her head once. No, she said, I haven't. My wife pushed forward then, color draining from her face. I'm sorry, this is my husband, she said quickly. He's a contractor. From out of town. The woman didn't look away from me. I know exactly who he is, she said. I felt exposed, seen, small and tall at the same time. The music stumbled back to life. Someone laughed too loudly. A waiter knelt to clean broken glass near my feet. The woman squeezed my hands once more. We'll talk, she said, soon. And just like that, she was gone, absorbed by the crowd like she'd never stopped moving. My wife stared at me like I'd committed a crime. What did you say to her? She demanded, her smile frozen in place. Nothing, I said. She said it to me. Her jaw tightened. She bent to retrieve her purse, then straightened, composure snapping back like a switch. Get another drink, she said. And stay where you are. I did, but something had cracked open inside my chest. From across the room, I watched her take the stage and speak about integrity. I noticed people glancing at me now. Curious. Measuring. And for the first time in years, I wondered if I'd been standing in the back because I belonged there. Or because I'd been told to. That night, I didn't sleep. And by morning, the silence between us had teeth. The silence didn't start on the drive home. It was already there. It rode with us like a third passenger, stretched between the seats, heavy enough that even the sound of tires on asphalt couldn't break it. City lights faded behind us. The river disappeared. My wife kept both hands on the wheel, posture perfect, eyes fixed straight ahead. She didn't ask what the woman wanted. She didn't ask how I knew her. She didn't say my name once. I watched the road roll under the headlights and replayed the moment in my head, the way the stranger's eyes had gone straight to my wrist, the certainty in her voice, the way she hadn't hesitated for even a second. I've been trying to find you for a very long time. That wasn't curiosity. That was recognition. When we got to the hotel room, my wife undressed quickly, efficiently, like she was shedding armor. She placed her phone face down on the nightstand, something she hadn't done before. Or maybe she always had, and I was only noticing now. She lay down with her back to me, stiff as a board. Traffic hummed outside. A siren echoed somewhere along the river. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. In the morning, she was already dressed, standing by the window. Phone pressed to her ear, whispering in short, sharp sentences. I know, she said quietly. Yes, I understand. I'll handle it. When she noticed me watching, she turned away. On the drive back, neither of us mentioned the gala. The silence thickened. 2 days later, my phone buzzed while I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring into a mug of coffee that had gone cold. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice. Hello? Is this you? A woman asked. Calm, direct, no hesitation. Yes. This is the woman you met the other night. I closed my eyes. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon, I said. I didn't expect to find you at all, she replied. But here we are. We met at a diner just off the highway, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and a bell over the door that still jingled when you walked in. No reservations, no dress code, no one pretending to be anything they weren't. She was already there, sitting with her back to the window. No assistant, no entourage, just a chipped mug of coffee and both hands wrapped around it. You still drink it black, she said when I sat down. I never stopped. She smiled faintly. For a second, I saw her younger, laughing, hair loose, sunburned shoulders. A memory I hadn't touched in decades. You remember, I said. I remember too much, she replied. That's the problem. She told me she'd been back once, years ago. Drove past the old industrial park, the place where we'd worked summers. Rusted gates, faded signs. But she could still see me standing there, boots dusty, hands raw, fixing something no one else wanted to touch. I asked about you, she said. I called, I wrote, I never heard back. I never got anything, I said. She nodded slowly, like she'd already known that answer. We talked for an hour. About time, about work, about the quiet ways people disappear when life moves faster than they expect. When we stood to leave, she slid a card across the table. If you ever need help understanding paperwork, she said, call this number. It's not about money. It's about clarity. That night, my wife noticed the card on the counter. Who's that? She asked too casually. Someone from my past. She smiled, thin and tight. Funny how the past shows up when the future's on the line. I went to bed thinking about letters that never arrived. And then I thought about my retirement account. Because for the first time, I realized I couldn't remember the last statement I'd seen. The thought started small, a whisper. Every quarter, there used to be a thick envelope waiting in the mailbox. Pension summary, investment breakdown, boring, reassuring. It hadn't shown up in a while. I told myself everything was digital now. My wife had said that more than once. Paperless is cleaner, but the feeling wouldn't let go. It followed me to work, while I tightened bolts, while I labeled panels, while I drank burnt coffee in the break room and stared at the bulletin board I'd passed 1,000 times without reading. That evening, I walked in and heard her on the phone. "I know," she said, laughing softly. "He doesn't understand numbers. I'll handle it." She turned her back when she saw me. Something in my chest went cold. After she went upstairs, I opened the desk drawer where we kept tax returns and warranties. Everything was there, except the blue binder. I checked the filing cabinet, the hall closet, the garage shelf. Nothing. "Where's the retirement binder?" I asked later. She frowned like I'd asked something ridiculous. "Why do you need that?" "I want to look at it." "It's all online now," she said. "You don't need to worry." "I do." Her eyes hardened for half a second before she smoothed them over. "You've been distracted lately. Let me handle this." There it was again. Handle. The next morning, I stopped at the credit union on my lunch break. The teller recognized me. We'd gone to high school together. She typed, paused, looked up. "Your mailing address was changed." "When?" "About 6 months ago." "To where?" She hesitated. "A P.O. box." "Who authorized that?" She glanced at the screen. "Your wife." "Power of attorney." "I never signed a power of attorney." She winced. "It's on file." I drove back to work with my hands shaking on the wheel. That night, I asked my wife to sit down. "I went to the credit union," I said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Why would you do that?" "They said you changed the address and that you have power of attorney." She sighed like I was a child interrupting her meeting. "It was easier. You forget things." "I don't forget my own name." "Don't be dramatic." I asked to see the paperwork. She brought a thick folder and slid it across the table. My signature stared back at me, or something close enough. I remembered the night she'd handed me a stack of forms after dinner. Insurance updates, routine stuff. I'd signed where she pointed. "You said it was routine." I said. It was. I flipped pages, beneficiary changes, digital delivery, documents I didn't remember agreeing to. "You're confused," she said softly. That word landed like a punch. That night, I called the number on the card. And for the first time in a very long time, someone on the other end said the words I didn't know I needed to hear. "You're not crazy," he said. "And you're not alone." The smartest thing I did was nothing. At least, that's how it looked from the outside. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her again. I didn't slam doors or threaten lawyers or demand explanations she could twist into weapons. I went to work. I came home. I asked normal questions. I nodded at the right moments. I let her think the word confused had worked. Inside, something had changed. Once you realize someone is rearranging your reality, you stop arguing with the furniture and start checking the walls. She noticed the shift before I said a word. Not because I confronted her, but because I stopped asking for reassurance. Control, I learned, doesn't panic when you fight it. It panics when you go quiet. 2 days after the credit union visit, I came home to find the house different. Not messy. Organized. The desk drawers were empty of anything that mattered. No statements, no folders, no envelopes. Just pens lined up like soldiers and a stack of old instruction manuals that hadn't been touched in years. The filing cabinet in the hallway had a new lock on it. Cheap silver, the kind you buy without thinking. "What's that?" I asked. She didn't look up from her laptop. "Privacy. It's my stuff too." She clicked her mouse. "Your stuff is in the garage." In the garage, I opened the old plastic tote where we kept light bulbs, duct tape, spare filters, and Christmas ornaments wrapped in newspaper. There was a laminated church directory from a decade ago. No retirement binder. That night, she sat on the couch, flipping through a magazine like nothing was wrong. "I talked to legal today," she said casually. My stomach tightened. "About what?" "About you." She finally met my eyes. "You've been acting strange." I let the silence stretch. "I asked where our retirement statements went," I said. "And I answered," she replied. "Paperless, cleaner, less clutter." "I'm not clutter," I said. She set the magazine down carefully. Do you want to keep your health coverage? The question landed heavy. You've been working fewer hours. You've had headaches, she continued, voice calm, professional. If you start accusing me of things, it creates instability. Instability, I tasted the word. At our age, she said, we can't afford mistakes. And you don't really understand how these benefits work. There it was. The line she'd used for years. I wanted to shout. To tell her I'd wired half the industrial park without once confusing a hotline with a neutral. That I'd trained apprentices half my age. That I understood systems just fine. But this wasn't electrical. This was psychological. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I nodded. Okay, I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. Okay, what? Show me. She hesitated just long enough to tell me she wasn't used to being challenged, then turned her laptop toward me. You'll get overwhelmed, she said. I'll try. The screen filled with numbers. She scrolled fast, too fast, then snapped the laptop shut. See? She said. Everything's fine. That's not showing me, I replied. Her voice sharpened. You're not thinking clearly. I stared at her. At the woman I defended at funerals. The woman who used to rest her head on my shoulder at the drive-in when we still laughed. I'm thinking clearer than I have in years, I said. I went upstairs and closed the door. My hands were shaking not from fear, but from the effort of holding myself back. The next afternoon, instead of driving straight home, I pulled into the public library parking lot. It felt strange sitting at a computer terminal with bifocals perched on my nose, fingers hovering over keys like they might bite me. I called the number again. Talk to me like I'm 5, I said. That's half my job, the man chuckled. He walked me through it slowly. Email recovery, security questions, two-factor authentication. I fumbled, swore under my breath, got a look from a teenage librarian like I'd insulted her pet. After 40 minutes, I got into an old email account, one my wife didn't know still existed, from back when my union made us do online safety modules. And there it was. Notifications, address changes, delivery preferences, beneficiary updates, all sent to an inbox I'd never seen. My throat went dry. I printed everything, one page at a time. The printer screamed like it hated me, but it spit out proof. That night, I didn't confront her. I wrote everything down instead. Dates, words, changes, patterns. My father had taught me that after I'd lost my temper and fouled out of a game when I was young, slow down, he'd said. Anger makes you sloppy. Over the next week, she got smarter. Passwords changed. Files moved. Conversations rerouted. But she made one mistake. She underestimated patience. I met the attorney she didn't know about in a diner near the old shopping center. Plain suit, calm eyes. The kind of man who'd spent decades watching people lie to themselves under bright lights. You don't need to be loud, he said, tapping the stack of papers. You just need to be precise. I'm not trying to ruin her, I said. He looked up. Then you're already ahead of her. That weekend, she hosted a brunch at the house. She didn't ask. She informed me. Stay upstairs, she said, arranging flowers like she was auditioning for a magazine spread. We're discussing leadership initiatives. Leadership, in my own home. I plan to avoid it. Keep collecting proof. Keep quiet. Then I heard one of the guests say, your house is so curated. Curated, like I was a dusty exhibit in a back room. Something in me snapped not into rage, but into resolve. I came down the stairs in my work boots, worn jeans, a plain button-down I'd ironed myself. Her eyes went wide. What are you doing? She hissed. Living here, I said. A few people turned. A gray-haired man in a blazer looked at my boots and smiled. Good boots, he said. My dad wore those his whole life. For a moment, I wasn't invisible. That night, after everyone left, she cornered me in the kitchen. You embarrassed me, she said. You've been embarrassing me for years, I replied. Her face flushed. You think you're clever now because some rich woman talked to you? I didn't answer. I went to the garage and opened an old box. Photos, clippings, a cassette tape from a life I'd forgotten how to recognize. I sat there a long time, not because I wanted the past back, but because it reminded me I used to stand my ground. And this time, I wasn't stepping forward for revenge. I was stepping forward for truth. And truth, when handled quietly, has a way of doing the damage itself. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy paper, embossed lettering. My wife's name centered in gold ink like it belonged there. An awards dinner, ethics, leadership, accountability. I held the envelope longer than necessary, feeling the weight of it in my hands. Not because it mattered, but because of what it represented. She'd built her entire life on being seen as untouchable, moral, polished. The kind of person companies put on stage when they want to reassure investors everything is under control. She didn't notice me reading it. She was too busy rehearsing. Phone calls, mirror practice, notes scribbled in the margins of her speech. She spoke about values the way some people speak about weather. Confident, detached, unaffected by the mess underneath. I said nothing. 3 days before the dinner, the packets went out. Not anonymously, not dramatically. Proper channels only. Audit committee, outside counsel, compliance liaison. Every document was time-stamped. Every claim backed by evidence. No speculation, no emotion, just patterns. Expense reimbursements that didn't line up. Changes made without informed consent. Internal emails referencing simplifying spousal involvement. Digital delivery confirmations sent to accounts I never accessed. Paper cuts. Individually harmless, together lethal. I didn't attend the prep meetings. I didn't hover. I didn't call anyone twice. I let the system do what it was designed to do when someone followed the rules instead of bending them. The night of the dinner, I arrived 10 minutes late. Not because I was nervous. Because timing matters. I wore clean boots and a dark jacket. Nothing that called attention to itself. Nothing that apologized either. The ballroom buzzed not with music, but voices. Confident voices. The kind that belong to people who assume they're safe. She stood near the stage, radiant. Clipboard tucked under her arm. Laughing, hugging donors. Her name glowed on banners beside words like integrity and transparency. I took a seat near the back, where she always preferred me. When she stepped up to the microphone, the room quieted. At a time when trust in institutions is fragile, she began, it's our responsibility as leaders to uphold ethical standards, even when it's uncomfortable. I felt calm, not excited, not angry, certain. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement at the head table. A man leaning in, a woman checking her phone. Another phone appeared, then another. She kept speaking. Dignity in the workplace isn't just a slogan. A hand went up near the front. May we pause? A board member asked, standing. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone cleared their throat. She smiled tightly. Of course. He didn't sit back down. There are questions, he said carefully, that need to be addressed before we continue. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for control. They found me. This is highly inappropriate, she said suddenly, voice sharp. This is my husband. He's confused. The word landed like it always had. I stood. The sound carried. Fabric against chair. Boots on carpet. Heads turned. I'm not confused, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I'm informed. A murmur rippled through the room. The board member nodded once. Documentation has been provided. Substantial documentation. She laughed, brittle. This is a personal matter. A marital dispute. No, he replied. It's a compliance issue. The projector behind her flickered to life. Email headers, dates, policy excerpts. Her color drained. You don't understand, she said, reaching for the lectern. This is out of context. I've been in the back long enough to see everything, I said quietly. Silence fell hard. Her hands shook. The glass of water tipped, rolled, and shattered on the stage. No one moved to help. The board thanked the attendees and announced a temporary suspension pending review. Donors avoided eye contact. A few glanced at me with something like respect. She was escorted off stage. Her heels clicked out of rhythm for the first time I'd ever heard. I stayed where I was. Outside, the night air felt clean. I stood by the water and breathed. Someone joined me a moment later, not touching, not intruding. You did exactly what you needed to do, she said. We did it right, I replied. She nodded. Inside, the dominoes were still falling. And for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for impact. I was standing. The quiet afterward was harder than the fallout. There were no dramatic phone calls, no shouting matches, no late-night confrontations that ended with slammed doors and broken plates. Everything happened the way truth usually does when it's handled properly, slowly, officially, and without mercy. I moved out the following week. Not in a rush. not under cover of darkness. No neighbors peeking through blinds while boxes scraped down the driveway. I packed what was mine, tools I'd earned one callus at a time. Clothes that smelled like detergent and oil, a small box of photos, old work boots I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I left the rest exactly where it was. Let the house look curated without me. The lawyer handled the details. Because everything had been done cleanly, the divorce didn't turn into a spectacle. The power of attorney was voided. Beneficiaries were corrected. Accounts restored to what they should have been all along. No jackpot. No windfall. Just fairness. After years of being told I didn't understand numbers, fairness felt like winning. She lost her job before the investigation even finished. Ethics violations don't wait for closure, especially when the evidence is documented and public-facing. In a town like ours, news travels faster than truth, but I still heard the phrase she used to use on other people now applied to her. Exploring new opportunities. I didn't gloat. I didn't check her social media. I didn't call. Revenge, I learned, isn't loud when it's done right. It's final. The quiet days were the hardest. I woke up alone in a small apartment with blinds I hadn't chosen and listened to the building settle around me. Some mornings, the weight of 30 years pressed down on my chest so hard I had to sit up just to breathe. 30 years is a long time to realize you've been shrinking yourself. I replayed moments I'd ignored. Times I'd swallowed words because it felt easier. Times I'd laughed something off because it was safer than pushing back. Standing in the back had become muscle memory. Then there were other moments. The first time I logged into my accounts on my own and understood every line. The afternoon I stopped by the old job site and watched a crew work, recognizing good hands immediately. The way my own hands rested on my knees, scar and all without shame. I met the woman again for coffee. No speeches, no events, no expectations. Just a quiet place with chipped mugs and bad pastries. We talked slowly, carefully, about where we were now, not where we'd been. We didn't pretend we were younger. We didn't rush anything. At this age, you don't chase fireworks. You look for steady light. Sometimes we drove with the radio low. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. That was enough. I thought a lot about dignity in those weeks. About how easy it is to give it away one compromise at a time. About how being told to stay back can sound reasonable until it becomes a rule you live by. About how control doesn't always arrive, shouting it often arrives smiling, offering to handle things for you. I wasn't starting over. I was taking myself back. And here's the thing no one tells you. The moment you stop asking for permission, the world doesn't collapse. It adjusts. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or quietly pushed aside, pause for a second and ask yourself something honest. Are you standing in the back because you belong there, or because someone told you to? If you believe dignity is something you're born with and never lose, comment 0. If you believe dignity is something you reclaim the moment you stop shrinking, comment 1. And if stories about quiet strength, hard lessons, and second chances matter to you, stay here. There are more coming. Some people spend their whole lives trying to impress a room. Others remember who they are. And finally, they step forward.